All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Ross, Levine, how are you, my friend? So good to talk to
I'm
you.
good. Yes, sir. Good to be back. It's been several years, huh?
Yeah, man. Last time you were on was right after your first karate combat fight. And needless to say,
Yeah.
there's been a lot that's happened since. And we got a lot of stuff to
And
talk
some things
about.
have changed. Some things have changed. Yes.
Yeah, man. Fuck. I mean, but today I just rewatched your the last fight you had with
Mhm.
Sam Alvey. What a
Yeah,
fucking I mean, that was a closely contested fight. I mean, I felt like it could have gone either way. Totally.
sure.
It was a lot of fun to watch.
Appreciate that, man. At the end of the day, the wins and losses, of course, they matter, but I want to make sure I'm entertaining people. And when someone says it like, man, that was just so much fun to watch, it's like, you know what? I lost. It is what it is, but man, that means a lot. So it's cool that I'm able to go out there and entertain people and put on a nice show.
Now, was that your biggest that you've been in a fight? Is that the heaviest you've gone?
Yeah, yeah. I've never fought at that weight class ever, even as an amateur. Like my first fight ever was at like 190 pounds, and I've never fought heavier than that. And as a professional, the only reason I took a fight at 205 is because the middleweight division was just empty. They when I signed with Karate Combat, they kind of ran me through the division pretty quickly. At the time, they were really building, and I think they needed an English speaking star. And they were able to kind of build me up, and I did my part. They did theirs, and then it was like, all right, the division was kind of stuck. I ended up having a rematch, and I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But yeah, it was just kind of lacking in the opportunity department, and I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to fight in Vegas, which I had never done before, and then also fight a former UFC fighter. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to check two boxes, and maybe it's not the best thing for my career, but I wanted to do that and challenge myself, and that's what we did.
Oh, I personally think it's great for your career. I mean, like you said,
Yeah.
if people were entertained, then it's, you did, like you said, you did your job. It gets more exposure. And I mean, you're daring to
Mhm.
be great. You get to go up and fight and become a champion at another weight class, which we haven't mentioned yet. You're, of course, the middleweight champ, karate combat middleweight champ, which is fucking, I mean, amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I would have gone on there and he knocked me out in the first round, it would have been like a very hard stop on like my career at 205. But I think with the way that the fight went, and I don't really know what people thought were going to happen. I think a lot of people thought I was going to steamroll him, and I mean, so did I. From a technical standpoint, I still think I did. He was just too big, man. There's weight classes for a reason, and although he has fought at middleweight in his UFC tenure, he is not a middleweight. That he is a true 205er. He has built himself into a monster. I mean, he came in on fight day. We were in the hospital together, and after the fight, I'm like, I gotta ask you, like, how much do you weigh today? And he was like, yeah, like 235 this morning. And
God.
so he was probably 240. He was probably 240 in the pit. When
Oh,
I was struggling to even make 205. So I was just too light. I was under. I think I weighed in on weigh-in day. I was 199. Maybe I was like 202 morning of the fight.
yeah. Yeah. Well, you could see the speed differential for sure. You
Yeah.
could see the speed differential. And I'm sure you anticipated there was going to be a little more grappling than you'd be used to in karate.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and listen, I did my due diligence. I was working with, heavyweights. I was working with guys who are, 220 plus. And my buddy, I'm not sure if you know or remember Jorgen De Castro, but I was
Of
working with
course.
Jorgen, who's like 265, and he was grabbing me, and I was holding my own. We knew that I wasn't going to be able to stop Sam if he grappled me. It was just a matter of like, hey, how do I keep myself safe? And then get myself back to my feet where I can do the damage. And that was the story of the fight. So I don't think I lost any stock whatsoever. I'm very confident about how the fight went. I felt good out there, and yeah, you win some, you lose some, man.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Now I also wanted to ask getting ready for that fight, did you do anything? Was there a focus in your camp of gaining a little bit more weight, gaining some more muscle? Was that something that you were at least thinking about or trying to put into play?
We had thought about it, and we started to. The goal was for me to, we had an extended camp. I wouldn't say it was a super long camp to really change your body. For anybody who's really into fitness, they know that, like, everyone thinks cutting weight is really hard, and it is. It's challenging. It's a task. Gaining weight the right way is equally as hard. And it's very time consuming. It takes a lot of time to do it the right way and really manipulate your body. So, when we first started, we probably had about 12 weeks notice that I was going to be fighting at 205 pounds. So, we changed up my lifting, we changed up my nutrition. And physically, like, when I looked in the mirror, I was like, damn, yeah, I feel good. But then when I would go and train, I was really lacking my performance. Like, I felt heavy, I felt stuck in the mud, I wasn't crisp or explosive. And I told my whole team, I was like, listen, I'm never going to be as big as Sam. Um, let's see how much it is. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, if I'm not at my best, this is a wasted effort. So we made the decision just to stay around my typical weight, which is, what I feel comfortable with, and focus on just having a great camp and get better. And we did that.
Sure. Yeah, that's always the thing when you hear somebody moving up in weight to fight, in whatever sport, boxing, MMA, anything. You
Yeah.
want to see them take if they plan on getting bigger, you want to see them take however long it takes. Like
Yeah.
watching just happen, Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje. You saw Max in there, and he was big, but he had a lot of time
Yeah.
to gain that size. Same thing with John Jones. When John Jones
Yeah.
disappeared to move up to heavyweight, same thing.
Yeah, and look how long it took John to really get to that point where he felt comfortable to fight at heavyweight. It was several years. It wasn't because there were no opportunities. It was he was taking his time, doing it right. It takes a long, long time, especially as you get older. So yeah, in the 12 weeks, it wasn't worth the effort to put on all that weight because I think my performance would have suffered. So yeah, it was a thought, but we aborted that mission pretty early on. Just
Yeah.
said, hey, I got to be the best version of myself, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, man. That's smart. I mean, it's better to cut something off early, kind of at the knees,
Hmm.
when you kind of realize that there's kind of a law of diminishing returns. You're not going to be as big as them, so let's use what we have and dig our heels into that.
Yeah, 100%, a hundred
Yeah.
percent. There were some things that we could not change, and his size was one of them. So it's like, well, let's just make myself the best, most dangerous version of myself that we could do, and we did that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now, when you are at 185, do you do a ton of, is there a big weight cut? Are you kind of in that range normally?
No, I wouldn't say I'm in that range. I definitely have to diet and cut some weight. But I have a great nutritionist, man. I have a great strength and conditioning program. My coach, Brad West, is fantastic. And, we just dial everything in. When I know I'm going to be fighting, or even before I get a contract, if as soon as I get dates of potential events, I'm already on top of it. I tell the promoter, like, hey, these are the dates I'm looking at. I'm already training. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I've already switched up my nutrition. Gosh, I mean, we're still 4.5 weeks away from my next fight. And I've been in my fight diet probably like 8 weeks already, if not a little longer. So, in total, we'll probably have about like 16 to 18 weeks of like a really firm diet where, I mean, I'm eating great every day. I feel really good and I'm performing well. So, yeah, it's not a terrible cut. The last couple times I've fought at 85, I actually have not needed to sweat. Because I put on a bunch of muscle for the Sam Alvey fight, I probably will need a bath. But again, I don't think it's going to be more than like 3, 4 pounds. If I do everything the way I'm supposed to, it should be nice and smooth.
That's such a huge advantage, not having to worry about, the a fight outside of the
Yeah,
fight. Because some guys cut
big
so
time.
much goddamn weight, and it's like maybe it's an advantage, maybe it's not. How suck drier you are, like
Yeah,
it's a fine line, definitely.
it is, and you got to do it the right way. That's what it boils down to. It's unfortunately everybody does it, and you got to do it. Especially, my last fight is is the reason why you got to do it. There is a huge competitive advantage to that if you can do it the right way. And man, it's like legalized cheating. You got to do it because everyone else is doing it until they start adding more weight classes and make it easier for the fighters. we're just going to be stuck in this, this rat race of like who can do it the best. It's kind of like the Cold War. Who can build the biggest weapon, and it's true, man. You need it.
Right. Yeah. And what was interesting about the weight classes in karate combat is that it's after 205 is super heavyweight, correct?
Yeah, there is no. They have never had fights at anything above 205. So it's 205 plus. So whatever
Okay.
you weigh ahead of as long as you make 205 the day of weigh-ins, you can be whatever the hell you want come fight day. There's
Wow.
no restriction, and there is no super heavyweight division where it's like 235 plus. So I'm sure at some point, karate combat is still relatively in its infancy. I mean, it's only been 6 years since the league had launched, and it hasn't even been a year with the new presidency that's come in. That's doing all sorts of different things, and building it, and taking it the direction it's going right now. So it's still very new.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, I mean, it's so popular. They're getting just that, like I said, when I was watching your fight, I'm like, there's so many stars at this thing. Nate Diaz and
Mm,
Aljamain Sterling and all these guys are there, and
yeah.
that's huge. And it's in Vegas. I mean, that's a huge step for any fight promotion.
Mhm.
So it's definitely
Yeah.
grown since the last time we spoke, for sure.
Well, yeah, and they're doing some smart things. They're piggybacking certain events in the U.S. that are around other big events. So purposefully, they did that show in Vegas the day before the UFC event. So it's like you had no excuse for those guys not to be at the show and checking it out. So they're doing some smart things. They just did a show in Dubai, and they brought out Luke Rockhold and Joe Schilling, and like they had a bunch of Middle Eastern fighters on there. They had Craig Jones out there. It's like they're doing all these things to pull views and get those clicks. And a lot of people are like, it's cringy, it's this, it's that. But you're watching, so all views are good views, and we want to make sure it continues to grow and develop, and we're on the right path.
Yeah. Well, the product is so good. The fights are so great. They're so exciting. I mean, you mentioned Luke Rockhold and Joe Schilling. I mean, that was fantastic. I mean, you've trained with Joe Schilling. He came to Rhode Island a couple times, if I remember correctly.
That's
Um,
right.
and everybody knows him. He's a bad motherfucker. So's Luke Rockhold, bad man. Um, what do you think about? They fought at 185, yeah, or no?
195 is a catch weight, but I think it's only because Joe found out relatively last minute. I think he only had about 3 weeks notice.
Okay,
So they did a catch weight. It was 195.
gotcha. So, I mean, Luke Rockhold's kind of close, 195, 185. Has there ever been potential talks, maybe behind the scenes, some inside baseball?
Yeah, so last year, after I had defended my title in April of last year, we were talking super fights. The initial thought was Machida. Machida asked for an exorbitant amount of money, which he rightfully deserves. So that didn't come to fruition. And then they talked about Rockhold, and then at that time, Luke was getting ready to do the bare knuckle fight with Mike Perry, so that had to get put on hold. And then they were talking about Darren Till, but that never manifested. So it was like, well, now I have zero options. So I'm going to move up to 205 just so I can take a fight. And that's when Sam Alvey came about. And then they were like, you know what, we're just going to make it for a title because you deserve it. So, I'm really glad that they gave me that opportunity. And then after that, maybe if I had, I think if I had won the fight with Sam, it would have given me a little more leverage. That it probably would have been me and Luke instead of Luke and Joe. So maybe I take a step back there. Maybe not. I could be just pumping my own tires a little bit. But that I think that's the only downside to losing that fight in Vegas was I think it could have propelled me a little bit more to get those bigger fights, and now we just kind of go back and wait. But at the end of the day, to be quite honest with you, I don't think Luke wants to fight me, and I say that in a respectful way of like not that like he's worried about fighting me. Like who am I to Luke Rockhold? Um, but like I don't think he wants to fight for the title
Mm,
because that means he's kind of locked in and has to continue to fight again. I think he's looking for super fights for big paychecks, and he deserves that too. He's earned that right. So, my preposition or proposition is I'll fight for a super fight. No, you don't have to fight for my title. You want to do a catch weight? Let's do a catch weight. Let's break out the checkbooks and let's make it work for everybody, and we can put on a hell of a fight. I would love to fight Luke. I think it would be stylistically a really, really cool and fun fight. Um, yeah, I think I have a lot of advantages. There's a lot of stuff that Luke does really well. So yeah, it'd be a cool fight.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That would be well. And plus, man, I mean, you are the champ. So at the end of the day, there is, if Darren Till wants to come fight, he can fight for a belt right off rip, and you can greet him. It's
Mhm.
you do have leverage in the situation for sure. Just being the champ.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting though, man. A lot of these guys, they just want the payday.
sure.
They don't really want to fight. Like they don't really want belt. They're not chasing belts at this point. You look at someone like Darren Till, who, and this again, this is not being disrespectful to Darren. Darren is a phenomenal talent, but he did great in the UFC until he had to fight some of those wrestlers in the top 10. And then he left. I don't know if he got released or just took a bunch of time off, but he hasn't returned. And then it's been like, oh, well, maybe I'll do this boxing card, or maybe I'll go back to the UFC, or maybe I'll do karate combat. It's like, it almost feels like he's testing free agency to see where he's going to get the most money. So I
Mhm.
don't think belts matter to this guy, and same for all of these like post UFC, post Bellator fighters. Like, they're looking to get paid, man. These guys don't really care about belts. They're trying to set themselves up for the future, and they should.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But well, wouldn't maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a different thing. Um, aren't the biggest fights money wise championship fights typically?
They should be, but those guys also garner a different market.
Mm.
Like for example, like I'm not going to disclose the amount that these guys got paid, but the main event of that show in Vegas was Anthony Pettis, Benson Henderson.
Yes.
Those guys made exponentially more than I did, and I fought
Sure.
for the heavyweight title. So those guys made a lot of money, more than they made probably in their UFC tenure. So they made a lot of money.
Yeah.
So like, you would think that your current roster champion is going to be getting paid a lot more, or at least up equally, but right now the market doesn't garner that, unfortunately. So it is what it is. But you know what, man, I'm very blessed that I don't have to fight for money.
Sure.
It's nice, when I get those nice bonuses. It's great. I can do a lot of things with it, but I've got my business, and everything's running really, really well. So I'm very fortunate that I can do this and just literally be passionate, and it takes me a very long way.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before we start talking about what's coming in next, I wanted to kind of go a little bit through your time at Karate Combat. I mean, you've put on some great performances. Like I said last time we spoke, it was your
Thank
first
you.
fight. Since then, a ton has happened. We've covered,
Yeah.
so we've talked about Sam, but I want to hear about the other ones, how you felt and how everything progressed.
Sure. I mean, well, damn, where did we start? We'll start from the beginning. So we spoke after my debut, which was during COVID times, empty arena against Andre Grinovich, someone who was a 205er, moved down to 185. Um, yeah, man, big, strong Belarusian dude, like just kind of tough, wouldn't go away. I hit him with some good stuff, and he just stuck in there. But it was a lot of new experiences for me. First time fighting in little gloves, first time with the pit, first time with grappling. Like, it was just a lot of new stuff. So my next fight, they put me right into a title contender fight against Igor de Castaneda, the Iberian Bull. So um, big, powerful, hard right hand, had a bunch of knockouts in karate combat, and was able to put together a really nice game plan, and put him away. Just kind of hit him with a pull uppercut, fell against the pit wall, and we all know that highlight spinning wheel kick on the pit wall.
Dog, that kick was fucking terrifying. When I saw that, I was like laying back and just getting clapped across the face with this fucking spin kick. That's fucking horrifying.
Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine it was too pleasant to be a part of. But it was funny at the time, and I can laugh about this now because I was actually just talking with Igor the other day, and I'm actually planning a trip to Europe later this year. And I was like, "Yo, man, I might come by if I swing by Barcelona." I'm like, "You guys want to get together? Can we train?" So we're actually pretty cool now.
Yeah.
But after that fight, there was like a ton of beef, ton of beef. He was upset originally because I had like wrote on Instagram like who's next for Turbo, and I like tagged a bunch of fighters. He kind of took it the wrong way, but yeah. So after that, he actually was protesting that it was an early stoppage, which was insane. Like there was no way the fight was going to get any better from him from that point forward. So, I'm glad that they stopped it because if anything, it took money out of my pocket. Did we talk about the way the bonuses are structured in Karate Combat?
I don't think so.
Okay, so the you get your base pay, and then the way that you win, method of victory, is how your bonus is structured. So
Oh
let's
wow.
say, for example, your base pay is $10,000, right? If you win by decision, you get half of that as a bonus. So if I win by decision, I get 10 and 5. It's not 10 and 10.
Okay.
Right. If you win by TKO, it's a 1x bonus. So you get 10 and 10. If you knock somebody out, you get 2-1. So it would be 10 to show and then 20 to win by knockout.
Okay.
So it's a huge bonus when you knock people out. So the fact that fight was stopped as a TKO, it saved him, but it hurt my wallet. So if anything, I should be the one that was pissed, not him.
Right.
So I lost freaking a bunch of money on that fight when I
Right.
could have knocked that dude out. If the ref would have let it go another 10 seconds, I would have knocked him out, So
Right.
he got away with that one, which was fine. So then that put me in line for a title fight against Shaheen Adamov, who was kind of like the boogeyman of the division. He was undersized, not very like physically, like he didn't look like much. And I think that's why he was able to really run through people, but he had some serious power in his right hand. He was the best grappler in the division. He really knew how to use his judo. He was a scary dude, man. And again, just tough, man. Freaking really, really tough. Just Azerbaijani, very good karate stylist, knows how to play his distance. And it was the worst training camp I had ever had. The worst training camp I ever had. I had so many injuries. I had herniated a disc in my back. My first sparring session, someone tried to sweep me and my foot was like stuck in the ground. So I had a grade 2 MCL tear in my knee.
Oh.
And then I hurt my back. So it was like, I was a mess, man. I had 2 sparring sessions for a world title fight. My first time going 5 rounds as a professional. I had 2 sparring sessions for the entire camp. And it was like, I remember Wednesday of fight week, like I'm fighting on Friday. I wake up on Wednesday and I looked over to my coach, Jake, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to be all right Friday. And he was like, oh, that's good because it's Wednesday and you need to be. So I was like, yeah, I don't know what to do, man. We're just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was a tough fight. The dude took a hell of a lot of punishment, but I was able to walk him down and just kind of beat him up and win that world title.
Yeah. Was that that wasn't the one with the nasty left hook. Was that your next fight after that?
That was my title defense last year.
Yeah. That left hook was nasty.
Yeah, so that was my first title defense. That was the rematch with Igor de Castaneda. So from the time that I had beat Igor the first time with the spin kick, I won the title in my next fight. His next fight, he had like a highlight reel knockout. He put this dude, Franklin Mina, into orbit. Like it was a close fight. To be honest, I thought Igor was losing by a very slim margin and he dropped his head and laid this right hand on and he put him out, like flatlined him, like head bounced off the canvas. It was nuts. I was there in person for it, and of course he called me out after the fight and I was like, yes, let's do this. Like
Sure.
I want to stay active. So it was like the perfect storm to put us back together. I'm usually not the type of person who's like, yeah, like let's do a rematch. Like I'm not really usually up for that, but it made sense at the time. There was a little bit of street beef that we had. He was unhappy about the first result. He just knocked somebody out. I won the title. It's like, all right, cool. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
So that was last April, and that was that left hook knockout.
Yeah, that was nasty. It's so crazy that you fought for a belt and you were all banged up like that. I mean, I know it's part of the game. I know so many people fight injured and you're not the first, you won't be the last, but just to hear that somebody won a fucking title and they weren't 100%, it to me is absolutely fucking amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're never 100% going into a fight. If you
Right.
if you're 100% going into a fight, you didn't train the right way and you're probably going to get your ass kicked. Like your training camp needs to be challenging. And in the process, you're taking punishment. So it's just part of the game and you learn how to deal with it. I've never had those types of restrictions before, but it's like at that stage, it was my first opportunity for a legitimate world title. I'm not passing it up. If I can stand on my 2 feet and I can move and I can throw punches, maybe did I have my whole arsenal to work with? Debatable. But I made it happen. So, it is what it is. And it was one of those things where I remember actually feeling pretty good throughout the entire fight. In the fourth round, I threw a head kick right at the end of the round, and he caught it like on his shoulder and dumped me. And I remember in the moment being like, oh, that's gonna suck later.
Yeah.
And finished the fight. And from the time I left the pit to the time I saw the doctor and got back to my room backstage, I couldn't stand up. I couldn't. My wife had to take my pants off. She had to put my shorts back on, put my shoes on, socks on. I was like around my mom and dad were like carrying me out and stuff. I was a mess, dude. I had so crazy. I'm a physical therapist. My brother is a cardiologist. The next morning, are you familiar with dry needling? Do you know what dry needling is?
I've heard the term. I'm not positive though.
It's like acupuncture,
Okay.
but it's like the physical therapist utilization of acupuncture needles for and use it for a multitude of reasons: pain relief, muscle integration, things like that. So I had brought a bunch of needles with me just so I can like do it for recovery while I was there for the week. And the next morning, I had to teach my brother how to needle my lower back, which is probably kind of dangerous,
I would
considering
say
it's
so.
like my spine and like my spinal cord and shit and like nerves. Like you don't want to mess up, but he's a cardiologist; he can figure it out.
He'll
So
figure it
I basically taught him how to do some dry needling on my back just to get a little bit of relief the next morning. I was so fucked up.
out. Yeah. That's
Yeah, it was
funny.
it was wild, man. It was
Yeah.
wild. And I poked myself in the eye in that fight, dude. I was a mess. I was a mess.
How
I
did that
poked
happen?
myself. If you go back and watch the fight, I want to say it was the same round. Was it round three? I think it was the third round. It was the same round. There were actually some really funny highlights with that when he grabbed my belt and pulled me in and like hit me while he grabbed my belt. It was right before that. We were in an exchange and I threw a punch and I whipped my hand back because I thought he was going to counter. And as I whipped my hand back, I like scraped my eye and it
Oh,
was so uncomfortable. And I was like doing this. I was like, oh, I got poked in the eye. And the referee, Mark Goddard, was like, I didn't see it. Fight. I was
yeah.
like, shit. I just had to switch stances. I couldn't see.
Yeah.
And it was actually a good thing that he grabbed my belt because it gave me a time to like wipe my eye and all that. So go back and watch that. It was pretty funny. Now that you know that I did it to myself, it's even funnier.
Right. Um, so the belt thing is that wasn't legal?
No, it was not.
No,
It was
right?
not. You're not allowed to grab the belt and strike. You can grab the belt to throw, but at the time you couldn't grab the belt and then strike. Because also at the time you couldn't clinch and strike. Now you can. So
Interesting.
yeah, at the time it was illegal.
It's interesting seeing, obviously, you said the promotion's only 6 years old. It's interesting seeing fighters from other disciplines, MMA fighters coming in and having to like figure it out, kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
They're kind of, it seems like, they're adding things or taking things away. They're also figuring it out themselves so that it's exciting for us, but it also makes sense for the brand.
Yeah, big time. And it's very deep into the cryptocurrency world. A lot of the people that run Karate Combat are involved with crypto. So one of the coolest things about Karate Combat is it's actually governed by a DAO. So if you know anything about crypto, a DAO is a token that you can buy and trade and do things with. But also the more tokens you own, you can like use those tokens to vote on certain things. Um, you can also place bets. There's like this whole other thing called up only gaming, which is a whole other podcast. But yeah, I mean, every decision that's made by the league is governed by the people. So like they have when you have the karate app, you can literally go in and they propose changes and you vote on it. And when the community votes, that's what we get.
Wow. I mean, that's got to be one of the first of their kind, right? I feel like there's
The
no,
first
yeah.
for a combat sport, yes.
Wow. That's really cool because people have been talking for years about like open source judging and having more of a sample size when it comes to judging, so we get a little bit better of an idea of the consensus of who won the fight. And this isn't that, but it's close. I mean, it's people, it's fans, it's people who want to see the sport move forward and want to see the promotion move forward, and it's great that they're gonna. I mean, they're bound to have some good input. I mean, we are the viewers, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is too, it's like it guarantees that we're, not only getting new fans, but retaining fans. Like what if you had a say in how everything was run and you made a decision to say, yes, I want this rule set, or yes, I want you to add clinches and knees. Now the next time Karate Combat comes on, you'll be like, well, I voted on this, so I'm gonna watch it. It's like every single time you when you become involved in some of the decision making, I mean, it just makes sense for retention of fans. So I think viewership has been continuously going up, and that's definitely part of the reason.
Sure. Yeah, it's like people are shareholders. It makes people,
100%.
feel part of the
Yeah,
thing.
definitely.
Um, Now, is Karate Combat looking into doing pay-per-view stuff? Because I love that it's free. I love that you can pretty much watch. It's fucking awesome that you can watch it. Are they looking into doing something like that going
Yeah,
forward?
I mean, I not that I know of. Not that I know of. I mean, they are very happy with the amount of viewership that they're getting on a free platform. I mean, again, it's one of those things where when every other fight organization goes right, Karate Combat seems to go left. They've done that from the beginning and they're continuing to do that. It's like, yeah, maybe financially, I don't know if it's going to catch up to them or not. I don't know how Karate Combat makes all their money. It is not up to me, nor do I care. That's their business. My business is fighting.
Sure.
But they have a ton of great investors. They do a lot of things, and obviously the return is great because everyone can watch it for free as many times as they want. So it's not one of those things where you got to pay. I think the biggest gripe about the UFC, and I freaking love the UFC, but I hate paying $90 every time I want to see a card. But it is what it is. So I don't know if they're going to move to that at some point. Maybe for some really mega shows. I don't know, but I haven't heard anything about it. So I don't think it's in the future. I think it's going to be YouTube here to stay, and I'm sure they'll continue to explore new options and evolve. But I think Karate Combat has always stood on fans come first, and I think it's going to remain that way.
And also, I mean, it looks so fucking cool. Not just the pit, but
Sure.
everything. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, me and Billy were talking before we started. It's like it just looks so dope. The moon and just the AI. I mean, it's awesome. It's like integrating modern technology with the fight game. Like it's kind of putting it all
Yeah.
together.
Did you watch any of the Dubai card that happened a couple weeks ago?
No, I hadn't.
Bro, go watch that. Go watch that event. The background was nuts.
What happened?
Absolutely nuts.
Oh, that was the Rockhold one. Okay, okay, okay.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. That was the Rockhold and Schilling event.
Got
But go back and watch that. They had like so it was
I
like
actually probably pull up a picture.
future Dubai. Yeah, the background was like future Dubai, and they had like it was all digital. So the backgrounds are live. They're moving backgrounds. They had like the museum of the future would like open up and planes would like land in the museum. They had a guy with a jetpack flying around. They
it.
were doing like 3D images of the fighters as they came out in the Dubai frame. Dude, it was sick. It was the coolest background they've ever done. And like that's just gonna show you what they're capable of in the future.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it looks like they're investing in that part as well because obviously we
Yeah,
want to
big
watch
time.
great fights, but it's entertaining too. It's very very cool. Very cool.
Of course. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, should we
We'll
start the
switch
next
to the
one?
next one. Yeah.
Okay, Ross, we're gonna start that next one. We're gonna end this and we'll come back. All right,
Perfect.
everybody?
Awesome, man. Perfect. I'll take a little pee break.
Yes, sir. See you then. All right, we're back. Yes. Quick pee break. Quick new Zoom start. Yeah, so we've pretty much up to date now on where your career is. Let's hear what's happening next. Did I hear you say, or maybe on social media, are you training in Canada at the moment, or did I hear that elsewhere?
No, no. So Yeah, so I was in Canada a couple weeks back. I always like to go up to Bazooka Joe Valtellini, former Glory world champion. We connected back in my days competing in Glory, and I've trained with him a whole bunch since then. You know, it's been several years of just a really good relationship. He's on top of being a phenomenal competitor. Like he was one of the best that ever did it. Our stories are so similar, and he's such a good martial artist and such a good person that he's become a very good friend and mentor to me. So I always try and go up, even when I'm not competing, just try and go up and learn and just hang with him. He's such a good dude. His team is great. They're always helping me out. So yeah, we always support each other.
Does he doesn't still fight anymore, right? He's like a commentator.
Yeah, he's retired. Unfortunately, he had some concussion injuries, back in his day when he was the champion. So
Sure.
he won his world title. Unfortunately, had to retire before he was able to defend the title. But now he's the current commentator for Glory. He's killing it like that. So he's making a hell of a career. He's got his whole YouTube platform. His gym is super successful. I mean, Joe's the man.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the thing. I mean, especially in kickboxing, it's you watch like old school K1. I mean, these guys were shutting each other off
Hmm.
constantly. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's especially that style. It's so fucking brutal, and getting out when you're still good in the head and everywhere else is so important throughout fight sports, but definitely in fucking kickboxing.
Well, and it's crazy too because he's only been knocked out once in his career. And he'd never been turned off, except for that one fight, which was that was like his fight with Nikki Holskin,
Okay.
where it was, the second fight in one night in the tournament he had in Japan. But yeah, I mean, he had been dropped, I think, only one other time in his career in his world title fight. But yeah, I mean, people don't realize the amount of damage you take when you're training all the time. So I'm just very fortunate that I have my medical background as well, so I know when to push myself, I know when to pull back, I know how to rehab myself when things pop up. So I've been very fortunate and blessed to not only still have my wits about me, but also I feel very physically strong and healthy all the time. So
Well,
fortunate.
I had always heard that the brain injuries come not from constant, not from the magnitude of a head injury, but the little chips away that happen over time. Like I always hear about
Oh
soccer players with heading the ball. They're not hitting each other, but they head the ball so often that they end up having,
yeah.
you know, degenerative diseases and whatnot.
Mhm. Yeah, it's both, man. I mean, certainly the magnitude plays a role, especially immediately after. But you're right; it's that long term. How many days a week are you sparring? Even if you're not sparring very hard, are you wearing a helmet? Are you? And then how many times are you competing a year? How much time do you take in between? What's your nutrition like? Like, what kind of protocol do you follow to take care of your brain? There's so much we know about the brain, and even more that we don't know. But we do know what is good for you, and a lot of people just ignore it, or even like when you're not symptomatic, it's like, how do you know? Like all this stuff is going on, you just don't even know, and then one day you wake up and you're having problems. It's a really sad thing. So, I always encourage all my students, just take care of it. You only get one. Don't mess around with concussions. It's not a badge of honor. You're not tough if you can keep training the next day. You're not tough if you can get up and keep fighting. Like, you got to protect. You only get one brain. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get to live that brain again. So you just got to really be careful and take care of it.
Now, how do you feel about sparring? What's your stance on sparring? Because especially nowadays, historically, it's always like you got to spar hard. Often, that it's you're training to fight, you should fight. And then there's another school of thought, a little more modern. People are like, it should be playful, it should be technical. Are you somewhere in between? Do you kind of see both sides?
I definitely see both sides, and I think it depends on where you're at in your career.
Mm,
Early on, I think early on in your career, where you're younger, you're physically fit, you're ready to it. Should you be knocking each other out in practice? Absolutely not. But should you be doing hard rounds that simulate a fight, with people that are going to take care of your head? Yeah, you probably should, because you need to know what it feels like to be under fire. You need to know what it feels like to be, under that type of pressure. So I do believe early in your career, with the right training partners, that you can go pretty hard, and it should be supervised by a coach who, when things, if it gets to a point where it's like, all right, this is dangerous, all right, stop, let's recover, do what we got to do, and come back another day. But it can't always be like that. And later in the career, like for me, I've been doing martial arts almost 30 years. Like I'm not just gonna forget how to fight. But for me right now, I have so much experience to fall back on. The most important thing for me is my speed, my timing, my reactions, my distance control. So those are the things that we're sharpening with sparring. And it doesn't always have to be crazy hard. So like right now, I'm 4.5 weeks out. I probably only have like one more like really hard sparring session where, and even then, like hard sparring for me is we go hard to the body and the legs, but we take care of each other's heads. So um, I'm 36. I'm going to be 37 this year. My brain ain't the same as it was when I was 25. So um, we take care of each other, but it's really like I don't need to get the hard stuff. I've done it so many times. I know what that feels like. I just need to sharpen my tools.
Yeah, I agree. I like sparring harder to the body and the legs, and then taking care of each other up. And that's so important. You can't just walk into a gym. I mean, I made kind of a mistake. I'll tell you, the last time I sparred, aside from the actual last time, was probably a year and a half since I moved out here. It's, money thing, you know how it is in New York, everything's expensive. Um, so the last time I was in Rhode Island was last month, and it was for a buddy's birthday. And I was like, I want to spar, I want to do something. And because I'd have the opportunity. I went to Rogue Island. Have you gone to Rogue Island?
I've never gone there. I know the instructor. I know some of the people that go there. I've heard some mixed bag results about Rogue Island.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So our friend John Larkin had mentioned, he's like, hey, you should come with us, or you should come with
Yeah, I know
me,
John.
and yeah, we should come and do this. And I was like, yeah, cool, man. He's like, it's light, it's technical. Long story short, he tells me that this was like one of the more harder nights in terms of sparring. And I'm like, yeah, definitely, for sure. I probably fucked up by coming here, maybe a year and a half out of practice, but it's that's the other thing about sparring. If you're not in shape, if you're not doing it, you probably should wait a little bit before
And
you get
sometimes,
right back into it.
yeah, but sometimes ego gets in the way too. Of like,
Yes.
you expect to be at a certain level, so you force yourself to elevate there when either you're not ready or your partner's not ready for that, or maybe it's like communication is always key, and we talk about that in our gym all the time with our students. Is like, hey, just communicate to me no matter what. The first question I ask people, even if it's people I work with every single day, when we touch gloves or we're getting ready, like in the rest round, it's like, hey, you want to do the next round? All right, cool. Touch gloves. Hey, how's your body feeling today? Any injuries? And then it sets the tone of like, I'm concerned about you, and I want to make sure that, hey, if you're, most people would never tell you, oh, my rib's a little sore. Okay, I won't go there. And that sets the tone of like, I'm here to protect you. I'm not here to tool on you. So that I lead every single round like that. Hey, how's your body doing? Any injuries? Anything we got to be careful of? Cool. All right, great. Because then if I say that to you, what are you going to say next?
Then okay, cool. We can work
Yeah,
well
but that,
together.
but, right. And then you're probably going to ask me the same thing in return, right? You're going to be like,
Yes.
oh, how about you? Cool. So it puts this mutual, like, all right, we're here to take care of each other. We're going to get some good work, but now where, maybe my legs bother me. Don't fucking kick my leg.
Right.
Right. And then it's like, now you've set the tone. And if I tell someone, hey, my rib hurts, and the first thing they do is they walk in, they throw a knee, it's like, all right, you're an asshole. Thanks for waving the red flag, because now I'm going to fuck you up. Right. It's like one of those things where, like I have to do my part to communicate. If I don't communicate it, it's my fault. If I communicate it, now it's your fault. So,
Yes.
just having that communication, it eliminates, strips away the ego, and it allows you to have a good training session. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you, man. That's a bummer.
It's all good. It's all good. It's one of those things where
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, this. You kind of deserve this, you fucking idiot. But
And
all kidding aside, all kidding aside.
nobody deserves that, right? We're all supposed to be in it, getting better together, and especially coaches know better than that. They should have been better supervised.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, what also must be really cool for people in the gym with you is that they can spar and train with a world champion who isn't going to fuck them up. That's going to help them significantly, whether they want to be a fighter and get better or they're just, testing themselves and trying to move forward. They're like, I sparred with a fucking world champion and, we were able to work with each other. It was good.
Yeah, it comes with a lot of responsibility, because there's a lot of people who are not cool, that are world champions that are absolute dicks when they're sparring. We always say, my coach Andrew Cornell, whenever we have sparring that is, intended to be a little bit more intense, he always says, rule number one, don't be a jackass. That's rule number one in our gym. Like, just let's not go there. But as someone like where I'm at with the amount of experience I have, it comes with a lot of responsibility where yes, I should be the best one in the room or damn close to it, but I also have to be the most controlled in the room, right? No matter what. Even when my ego gets tested, even when I'm having a bad day, even when someone else is being a jerk, even when someone does something they shouldn't do, I have to be the one that always has the most control. So, not only just control with my technique, but like self control. And yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, man. And I pride myself on maintaining that in and out every single session.
Sure. Now, going forward, next fight, when's it happening? Where is it happening? I'll hear all about it.
Yes, sir. It is going to be
Yeah.
in Austin, Texas. It is May 30th. It's actually a Thursday.
Okay.
They're doing it as part of the Consensus Crypto Convention down in Austin, Texas. So the convention is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they're doing the show Thursday so that everyone can be there. Yeah, it's going to be dope. Going back down to middleweight, back into my weight class. I am fighting Adrian Hadrabia. He has fought once for Karate Combat and won. He beat a UFC veteran on like 2 days or 2 weeks notice with a bad knee. Like he really wasn't super prepared for that fight and still made it happen. So now he's got a full 8-week camp from when we signed our contracts, and yeah, he's got a 12-2 MMA record. It's good, nice counter fighter, good footwork, scrappy. It's gonna be a banger, man. I'm loving it.
And camp's been great. Camp's been great at least up until this point.
So far,
Yeah.
so good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel really good. The big thing for me is like I'm just always trying to get better. I'm just trying to improve, learn new things, change my game a little bit. Like every time you see me compete, there should be some evolution of something. Maybe it's my boxing's gotten better, or my footwork has improved, or I'm countering, or I'm fighting southpaw a lot more. Like there should always be a new step that you see of like, oh, I didn't see this last time. So, it makes it very hard for people to study film on me because they're only going to see a limited version, and then there's going to be new wrinkles in my game. So, there's a lot of things that we've added to my arsenal. Now we are allowed to clinch and knee, which is something that hadn't been allowed before, but I was able to do that back when I was fighting Muay Thai, and when I fought in Glory, we can clinch a little bit. So I get to bring back some of those old weapons, and now there's unlimited ground and pound. That's something that I fell victim to in my last fight, that now I'm going to know how to take all of that experience and utilize that against a smaller fighter. So you're going to see a whole lot of really cool new things from me this event. And yeah, as long as I'm getting better, good things happen in the pit.
That's the mindset I think that separates people who are really good at shit and people who are okay. Is they're a white belt for them. They're never, I figured this out. I've got everything that I need. I don't really need to do much else. I'll just keep doing this. That's such like a stagnant, people stay stagnant in that. And it's just great that you continue to evolve and to learn and to keep going forward. Now, when you say unlimited ground and pound, does that mean, because clear up the rules for me. What I understand is the striking can happen while the person is standing, but once they're both knees hit, they're both considered downed. Is that what it is?
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it used to be when I first entered Karate Combat, there was a 5-second limit on the ground and pound. which I liked. I actually still like. I don't love the new model, but I understand it, and I'll tell you why. But basically, as far as like what I can and can't do, as the standing opponent, if you are on the ground, not the pit, if you're on the pit wall, you're still considered standing, everything goes. As soon as your butt hits the ground, you're a grounded opponent. The person standing can now punch. Initially, it was for 5 seconds. And I can have one knee down or I can have like knee on belly, but my other foot has to be elevated. If both knees touch the ground, action stops, stand back up. That's how the old rules were. What was changed was a lot of times fighters that would fall or get knocked down, they would basically curl up in a ball and take punishment for 5 seconds until they were stood back up, which is not very likely. Like if there wasn't a 5 second rule, you'd get beat up and knocked out.
Sure.
So now they've adapted the rules to say, okay, there's no more 5 seconds. You are on the ground unlimited until a number of things might happen. So until striking is stalled. So if I'm throwing punches and I try to move and change positions and I take a little too long to re-engage, stop, stand up. If you kick me off and now create space, stop, stand me up. Or if the person on the bottom works their way back to their feet to a standing position on their own, or can like pull guard, manipulate their opponent to stall the striking and show that they've demonstrated how to keep themselves safe, stop, stand them up. So what I liked about the 5 seconds was that it was very objective. There's everybody knows it. There's a signal that goes off while you're fighting. When 5 seconds is up, you hear a bell and the referee stands you up. What I don't like about the unlimited rule is that every referee is going to have a different interpretation of it and different implementation of it. No matter how well the rules are written, the referee is now in charge of when you start and when you stop. So that's the difference where like every fight has a potential to look a little bit different, which I don't think is good for the longevity of the sport. But what I do agree with is you got to know how to keep yourself safe. So, I get it. I get it. And even though maybe it doesn't favor me because I've never grappled, well, I mean, I'm grappling now, but I know I don't have a history of like MMA jiu-jitsu. I basically train it as I need it. It doesn't really favor me, but I understand it.
Now, what can a downed opponent do as far as
They
strikes?
can they can only kick up. Well, I guess they can kick and punch, but yeah, they basically a grounded fighter can still fight their way off and defend, or they can work to control or stand up.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. So there'll be some new rules that you'll get to play around with.
Yeah, I mean, well, in a perfect world, we never see the floor. I knock this dude out, and my butt never touches the floor. I never have to ground and pound. Nothing. I mean, you've seen actually in a majority of my fights, even with the 5 second rule, if I hit someone, they go down. Maybe I throw a punch or two, and I back off. I'm like, get up, come back into my world. This is where I'm better. So,
Yeah.
that will change. I will definitely engage on the ground now that I have unlimited amount of time. It's more worth it to me. There's more value to me, where I can actually stop people on the ground. And especially after, getting beat up for 6 rounds by a guy who's 240 pounds, now I know how to use the pit a little bit better. I learned a lot from that fight. So we'll be taking some of that in if it goes that far. Like I said, hopefully one hitter quitter. I knock this dude out with the first punch I throw and we're good to go.
Now, this last fight you had did go into 6 rounds. How do they determine after 5 rounds? Or like, we need an extra round. How do they figure that?
It's very simple. Karate combat, you are not allowed to have a split decision and you're not allowed to have a draw. So if there is a split decision or a draw decided by the judges, that's automatically you're going to a sixth round, or in a regular fight, a fourth round. So you go the
Interesting.
extra round for that, and then the rest of the fight doesn't matter. It's wipe clean. It's overtime. Whoever wins that round wins.
Wow. Oh shit. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Damn.
I like it. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't like it. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah. Because I mean, you fuck that guy up that round, you win. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it gives you a chance. It gives you a chance. If you were losing, if you thought you were losing, it's like ooh, gives me a chance. If I thought I was winning, it tells me it was too close. I need to be better. So it's,
Sure.
it's just motivation to get the job done, man. You got one shot, make it happen.
That kind of sounds like Letway rules. Like I remember looking at Letway uh, fighters' records, and you can only win by
Mm.
finish. You can only knock people out. If not, it's a draw.
I
Like
knock out. Yeah.
if you look at their records, it's
Yeah.
like 30 draws these guys have. You know, it's just funny to see. It's just an interesting that you can't win by split
Right.
decision.
Yeah, yeah, which is cool. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, you could never have that in any other sport. You couldn't play basketball and I score 100 points, you score 99, and the referee's like, no, he won. Well, but I scored more. Yeah, well, one referee thinks I won, one referee thinks you won. Like, it would never happen. So you have to have a decision, right? There has to be a legitimate decision, and to have that opportunity where if the referees, or excuse me, if the judges decide like, hey, this wasn't close enough for you to be a unanimous winner, if I didn't do enough to make that happen, well, shit, I deserve the extra shot to make it happen. And if I was on the losing end of that, and one judge somehow thought I made it happen, or a draw, well, that's motivation for me to get it done.
Sure, sure. No, that is fun. That is very fun. Now, when do you actually get to go down to Austin? Because Austin has obviously grown into such a very fun looking. Looks like a fun place.
Yeah, I've been to Austin a bunch, so I'm really looking forward to go back. It's been probably like 6 or 7 years, maybe even longer since I've been there, and I know it's been like crazy developed since then. But with the fight being on Thursday, I'll probably get there on Sunday. So that's what, May 26th or 25th, something like that. So we'll get there several days in advance. We'll have media obligations, we'll have press conference, weigh-ins, all that stuff. I'll get my training sessions in, get acclimated to the heat and everything, but it's really not bad. It's only a 1 hour time difference, so it'll be a breeze. Yeah, and then I'm actually going to stay a couple days after, win, lose or draw. I'm going to do what I do and enjoy myself a little bit, and get to see Texas a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, hell yeah. That sounds like a lot of fun, man. I'm excited. I'm very excited. I love to watch your fight. I love the I mean, you fucking overload people on the feet with the feints and the
Mm,
it's so fucking fun to watch. And I think you utilize the leg kicks maybe better than anyone else if I in karate combat.
thank
It's
you.
so those calf kicks are fucking brutal and you set them up so well and I'm excited. I'm very excited to watch your fight again.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I'm excited to be in there again. It's been a little bit, December. I always like to be active. I would have loved to be on a show earlier this year, but hey, man, everything happens for a reason. This is the right opportunity, and I'm really, really pumped for it.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Where can we're gonna wrap this thing up. Where can people find you? Yeah, where can people find you?
Yeah, best way to reach me is on my Instagram at Ross_Turbo_Levine. Definitely follow all my content there. Follow Karate Combat. Check them out on YouTube. Everything is free. I'm actually really, really pumped. I can't show you any of the artwork yet, but I just started dealing with a new artist who's making a sick, sick, sick design for this fight shirt. So I should have some merch updates, if not by the end of the week, early next week. And this fight shirt is going to be insane. One of the coolest fight shirts you've ever seen in your life. So make sure you guys follow along for some of that stuff. Grab some merch and support your boy.
Fuck yeah. And May 30th. May 30th, tune in.
May
Watch it.
30th, Karate Combat, KC 46, Austin, Texas, baby.
That's right. Watch this man fuck this guy up. It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be a great time. Ross, thank you so
Amen.
much again, man. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you guys. Anytime, man. Anytime you want me on here, I'd love to be there.
Yeah, man. Next time you're in Brooklyn, we're gonna do it in person. It's gonna be great.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.